I think especially after the last 2 years, people have decided, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge. I'm changing careers entirely.
Right.
Or just ways that they can advance themselves. Maybe you're not where you want to be. And Kara's got some big names.
I do. So it was so fun researching because we picked women to talk about today, and these women are so distinguished, and I'm just privileged to be able to tell you about them. So the first one is Julia Child. So maybe you've seen a biopic about her. Her documentary, or the biopic that starred Meryl Streep, was excellent. But her life was so fascinating, largely because she found her groove later in life. I had so much fun watching these videos. So she first worked in media and advertising, then she moved to France and she learned how to cook, and she fell in love with it. She turned her newfound hobby she was professionally trained, but she turned this new love into a trailblazing career. She published her first cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, at the age of 50.
Yes.
She was the first woman inducted into the Culinary Institute of America's Hall of Fame. And this is so interesting. So watching somebody, she kind of talks like this. So she was taught that accent from an affluent school that she went to. It was this affluent, elite private school. There was one in Hollywood. There was some along the East Coast in the 1910s. And they taught this overpronounced way of speaking, which is how she spoke.
Right.
And the artificial accent was dubbed childish, is what it was called. And so some people actually spoke like that until the 1940s when they stopped teaching it.
Wait.
How interesting is that? Yeah.
Okay, I would love to know what she normally sounded like. Come on.
Well, maybe she just still talks like this, but it worked for her.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, but people were often confused on to where her accent came from, but it just came from her school.
Her school, wow.
Yeah. All right, next we're going to talk about one of the most prolific, amazing women in history, Toni Morrison. So she's an acclaimed novelist of the Black experience. She's been celebrated for decades for her books, which include The Bluest Eye, Song of Solomon, and Beloved. She won a Pulitzer Prize and was the first African-American woman to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Miss Morrison did not receive notoriety largely until 1993, when she was 62 years old. Now, this is interesting also in researching Miss Morrison. She was born Chloe Wooford, I don't know if you know this, and at the age of 12, she became a practicing Catholic. So she took the baptismal name of Anthony, which led to the nickname Toni Morrison. But in an interview in 1992, she said she wished she hadn't changed her name. And she did write some personal essays later as Chloe Anthony Wooford, which she said was what she felt like was her actual name.
Was her actual name.
Yeah.
But that,
isn't that
wow, fun fact.
Yeah. So,
God, this is amazing.
Well,
and 62.
Yeah, 62.
Wow.
I know.
When she got the notoriety that she so deserved. Yes.
Right. There's that Fran Lebowitz, who's a caricature of New York City. She is New York City. Her and Toni were best friends later in life, and she kind of makes an appearance in her documentary, just talking about how close they were as friends. It's a really good
I have
series
to see this
on Netflix if you want to watch it.
Good.
Okay, this next woman, I want to ask you a question. Do you know who tried to make the Olympic ice skating team, speaking of the Olympics coming up soon, after competitively skating since the age of 7? She didn't make the team. Do you know who it is? It is Vera Wang.
Designer Vera Wang?
Yeah, so this is so interesting. So Vera got engaged.
She does have an ice skater's body.
At 39 years old. And this was the impetus for her passion for fashion, because she got engaged and she could not find a wedding gown. So she designed one for herself. At 40, she got married in her wedding gown. Then from the pushing of her parents, who were immigrants in New York City, she started her bridal business, okay? The rest is, they say, is history. She's worth $300 million now. Here's a quote she had to say about prioritizing that I love. She said, I think we're all trying to figure out, especially at the start of a new year. So she says, in all honesty, I go to whoever's screaming the loudest. When you run a company, it's like a family. So whichever baby is screaming the loudest, you run to that child. It's quite logical, actually, because if someone is screaming really loudly, something's wrong or something needs to be fixed. That's how I operate. Prioritizing is not always possible because very often there are things that are equally important. There are 10 things that are equally important. And I think that's so important because I think as we go into the new year, we put our priorities down, and sometimes you just can't do it all.
You can't do it all. Whoever's screaming the loudest. I like that.
72 years old.
What if whoever's screaming the loudest is you?
Yeah. Then you know what? That's also a very important lesson, Christine.
Right?
Look inward.
Look inward. Look inward.